2 days ago, Jeff McDonald posted the following. Just watched the sunrise from above the clouds. So stoked. Jeff got 19 likes and 7 comments. Not bad, Jeff. Geico has a comment to add that may make you even more stoked. In just 15 minutes, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance by switching to Geico. And if that doesn't put your head above the clouds, you'll have the extra money to scale a peak that will. Hashtag on cloud 9, hashtag savings.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Blog Talk Radio.
We are the UR Tennis Network. Our mission is to be the voice of tennis. We enlist a team of passionate enthusiasts to promote our sport. We strive to bring interesting perspectives on the many spins of tennis. Our goal is to provide the learners of our sport with current news and information from many angles. We seek active participation from communities interested in tennis, but tennis is not interested in them. We are expanding our outreach. Tennis is a true lifetime sport that needs to be talked about, and the UR Tennis Network pledges to pursue this idea relentlessly.
Good morning and welcome to the Parenting Aces radio show on Blog Talk Radio's UR Tennis Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and of course we have another fantastic show for you this week. Our guest today is Frank Giampaolo. Frank is a 30-year sports education veteran, author, popular convention speaker, and instructional writer for national and international publications. He's written several books, including the bestseller Championship Tennis, The Tennis Parent's Bible, and the Mental Emotional Workbook series. His innovative approach has made him a worldwide leader in tennis instruction and coaching. His television appearances include NBC's Today Show, CNN's World Team Tennis, Fox Sports, Tennis Canada, Tennis Australia. And Frank's innovative approach has made him a worldwide leader in athletic parent education. He's conducted workshops all over the place, including across the U.S., Mexico, Israel, New Zealand, Australia, and Canada. And he's currently the vice chair of the USTA Southern California Tennis Association Coaches Commission. So we have, as I said, just a fantastic show with Frank today. He has got expertise in all areas of junior tennis development, coaching, and parent education, and I'm really excited to have him on today. Before I bring him on the air, though, I want to go to a quick commercial, and when we come back, Frank Giampaolo.
Warning. Orthopedic surgeons are seeing an increase in overuse injuries when young athletes perform the same repetitive stressful motions over and over. Pitching, tennis, weight training, even long swimming workouts can cause overuse trauma that may require surgery. If your kids play and train hard, visit orthoinfo.org or stopsportsinjuries.org. A message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons and the American Orthopedic Society for Sports Medicine.
Welcome back to the Parenting Aces radio show on Blog Talk Radio's UR Tennis Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and as I said before the break, we have with us today Frank Giampaolo. Frank, I am bringing you on the line. I think I'm bringing you on the line. Here we go. And there, I got you. Frank, are you with us?
Hi. Yeah, I'm here. Hey, Lisa.
It's so good to have you back on, and I mean, you have been such a busy guy, traveling, writing, speaking, and I'm just thrilled that you had some time to give to the Parenting Aces audience today, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'd love to do it. This is my passion, so helping the parents and helping the coaches, so I enjoy it.
But we love having you on.
Oh, thanks. No, anytime, and parents, feel free. You can always contact me with any of your questions. I can give you my email later on with that. But I know one of the things that I do hear around the world from tennis parents is my child is a terrific athlete. They seem to be the best athlete out there, but they don't win. Why is my kid such a great athlete, but they don't win? So I thought maybe we can kind of talk about that and truly
sure.
go a little bit deeper, man, it's tough, but there is an art to winning, and winning comes from the 2 or 3 months leading into the event. So it's deliberate, customized practice versus the old school group training. And so if you guys don't mind, I can talk about that a little bit, and maybe some of the parents and coaches can start to flip their training to more of this deliberate, customized approach as opposed to the one-size-fits-all hitting type of lesson. So
sure. Let me, before we jump in, Frank, before we jump into that, I just want to give out our call-in number in case anyone listening today has questions. That number is 714-583-6853. Again, that's 714-583-6853. And if you do call in with questions, please be patient with me. I will take you and as quickly as I can. But hang on. You may have to hang on for a minute or two if we're mid-topic. But okay, so let's definitely jump into this whole idea of deliberate, customized practice, and I love that, and it's something that my son has utilized to great success, and has derived incredible benefit from it. So I would love to just let you kind of explain what that means and how parents and junior coaches can implement that.
Okay, terrific. From my side, most parents and coaches have to understand that there comes a time where you have to really work on fundamental stroke production, but then there comes a time to graduate from that and kind of dive a little bit more into mental and emotional. And we see it a lot in high-level tennis. Great fundamental strokes get you into the draw. Great athleticism and being physically fit get you past the third, fourth rounds of the draw. But then to actually win the title and win all the trophies, you have to have great mental and emotional. And from what I see around the world is that a lot of times players are out there playing catch back and forth all day, but winning tennis is a game of keep away. It's not a game of catch. And so we see that a lot. So I'm going to kind of dive into that. But let's first talk about the confusing difference between mental and emotional, because you hear it all the time at tournaments that my kid's not mentally tough. Let's go through them. So the mental components, they relate to the analytical match decisions, which could relate to, I'll give you a couple of examples for all the listeners. Walking into a match with the players' 3 tiers of match strategy organized. So whether it's an Andy Roddick or a Sharapova, they go into every match with their best patterns in mind. They're going to play their game, their style of tennis, whether it's clay, grass, hard, whether it's the first round or the finals. They go in playing their own game. If it's not working, they shift to stylistic strategy, which is basically assessing what style is that opponent. What style am I losing to? Are they a pusher retriever? Are they a net rusher? And then the third tier is kind of customizing it to that actual individual's strengths and weaknesses, whether it's court positioning or a weak backhand or a weak forehand. So I think from the mental side, that's a great place to start, knowing who you are, because a lot of kids don't. How to position to maximize success is really important in the mental game. I had a player yesterday that swore that he is better from 10 feet behind the baseline. We had him play some sets, and we're charting points won or lost from inside the court and behind the court. And the same player is winning 69% of the points inside, 39% behind the court. But he thought he was better behind the court. So it's another sign of just mental toughness, knowing what court position you're actually more successful at. Couple of the little, grandfathers of mental toughness might be how to assemble game plans or shot selection, like hitting the shot the moment demands. That's mental toughness. That's the X's and O's of strategies. So I think that's really important. Later on, we're going to talk about the mental side of opponent awareness, which is also a side of mental toughness. So let's balance into this side of emotional toughness, because it is very different. But emotional components relate to the athlete's ability to handle competitive anxieties, performance anxieties. That's more emotional toughness, controlling fear and anger and nervousness and closing out sets and matches and tournaments. And, for some of us, it's just, can you concentrate for the duration of a match? Can you concentrate for 2 matches in a row? Overcoming choking and panicking. So there's a few examples of the 2 different mental and emotional components. And did you see that a lot, Lisa, with your kids growing up, that they would have the strokes, but it would be mental or emotional? That would be the difference?
Absolutely, and I think you see that at the top of each level of the game, whether it's juniors, college, or the professional circuit, or even at the recreational level. Your contention, Frank, is these are skills that need to be trained just as the technical aspects of the game need to be trained, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're all learned behaviors. They're all what I call preset protocols. So knowing how to beat a moonball pusher by knowing which patterns make them highly uncomfortable, it's a preset protocol. And I think you're absolutely right. Oftentimes we just think of grooving strokes as all we need, but it's grooving patterns. It's grooving protocols to help these emotional issues or these mental issues. And the interesting thing, it's really customized. It's I'll give you a few of the secrets to help train mental and emotional components, and maybe here's 4 or 5 of them. The first is it's really important that parents and coaches understand brain and body typing. It's really big that if you understand what type of personality profile you have as a player, they have strengths and weaknesses, or efficiencies and deficiencies. A good example might be a real extrovert, intuitive kid might be very happy charging the net. Or on the other side, an introverted sensate, the kind of personality type that wants all the facts first, they might be better suited to be a counterpuncher. Running to the net blindly without detailing all the facts first doesn't fit into that personality profile. This is all based on Myers-Briggs and psychology, but we use it a lot with just maximizing player potential at a quicker rate, because trying to take a young player and having them do what's not natural, having them do what's not part of their genetic predisposition is crazy talk. You're wasting your time. It's really important to devise the game plan based on the personality. And it's fun because we see the same issues and the same problems around the world with similar personality profiles. Like, for example, thinkers and feelers. Thinkers are more naturally detached to the emotional climate. They don't get wigged out with cheating and gamesmanship. Feelers do. Feelers want harmony. They want everybody to get along. So a feeler, you'll have to really train a feeler how to handle cheaters. Or the last kind of component would be judges or perceivers. And judges are in the here and now. Perceivers are found with their brain in the future. So a perceiver almost always can get up 5-2. Now they're already thinking about where the trophy's going to go in their room. They're thinking about their ranking, who they're playing next. And then they blow it. And the parents go, I don't get it. And you go, well, yeah, because they're a perceiver. So I would really recommend for parents to check out personality profiling, have a lot of fun with it. And also a nice keen thing is, I know we talk about this a lot, is sometimes your kid is not being a jerk. They're not doing things just to spite you as a parent. They might be wired opposite you. They see the world different, and they solve problems different. So that would be one of the first things I would look at in mental and emotional.
And just for the listeners that may not be familiar with personality typing or testing, a lot of this information is now available online, where you can go, have your child sit down on a website, answer a series of questions, and get these personality types, fed right back to them almost instantaneously. Which is a really great tool to have. So in 2015, there's really no excuse for not having this information on your player. The information is readily available. It's available for free, and so why wouldn't you want to have that? And as a coach especially, wouldn't it make your job easier to understand the personality profile of the kid you're working with?
It sure would, especially if your deepest concern is maximizing their potential at the quickest rate. Sadly, though, I have to say that I see a lot of coaches still very old school. They're teaching the style that they found successful back in the 1980s when they played. So if they were a counterpuncher retriever, they're trying to make all their students that style. And so parents, be wary of that. If you have a top level coach, but he demands that your child plays his style of tennis, run for the hills, because it's probably not right. So be careful about that. But another key component, though, from my side is developing your child's secondary strokes. And parents, I think we have to really educate parents to the fact that they are the CEOs of the organization. They're in charge of hiring and firing coaches, hitters, trainers, mental emotional experts, sports psychologists. The parent is in charge. And if the parent's not aware of what's going on, basically time runs out. And then you have a great naturally talented athlete that didn't make a good D1 college team because the parents weren't involved and the parents weren't aware that they're in charge of the coaches. So they have to really, I think, take that under consideration. It's a family project if you're going to raise athletic royalty,
Well, let me throw a question out there though, Frank, because I have a lot of people that follow Parenting Aces that don't live in tennis meccas. I live in a tennis mecca. I'm in Atlanta. We have a gajillion players, a gajillion coaches to choose from, but a lot of my listeners don't have the luxury of choosing a better coach because there may only be one or two coaches around. And so what's a family to do in that situation? I mean, it's got to be terribly frustrating.
I agree. And I think that the best approach would be to gently educate the coach as to your needs and your child's needs. And sometimes a high IQ coach, they do have all the information, and they can really help you organize the pathway or the developmental plan. But I think that the parent has to sit down with the coach. There has to be monthly meetings. There has to be email exchanges. And everybody has to be on the same page. If the parent is not educated in the process, that always spells trouble. So,
well, and you've been on both sides of this. I mean, you've done this as a parent, and you've also done it as a coach. So, do you have maybe some concrete tips that you can share with the parents out there for how to approach a coach when you, the parent, feel as though the coach isn't serving the child's needs?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll give you 3 or 4 right here, 3 or 4 different topics that a parent can sit down with the coach and talk about the needs of the player. And the first thing is discussing, the child's brain type, how my kid is wired. This is how you're going to successfully motivate my child at a faster rate. The second is talking together with the coach and organizing the fact that all the tools in the tool belt need to be developed. So what I mean by that is there are primary and secondary strokes, and I think this is very important. This is one of the big missing links. The analogy I use is a world-class painter. A painter doesn't just use one color green. They have about 12 different versions of green on their palette, and when they paint, their paintings are world-class. They make money with their paintings. Now, in tennis, there's not just primary strokes. There's primary and secondary strokes. So there's the killer, hard, aggressive forehand drive, but there's also a big, high and heavy forehand, a short angle forehand, a short drop shot slice, a defensive recovery slice. There's like 5 different forehands, and there's 5 different backhands. And even in the world of volleying, all too often we see a player stand right on top of the net, and they only work on their primary punch volley, but there are swing volleys, drop volleys, half volleys, transition volleys. The whole tool belt needs to be developed so then later the child can run patterns with these secondary strokes. So that's one of the things that from a parent side, it would be a great way to approach a coach. You would go and say, look, my little Kelly has lost to moonball pushers 4 times in a row. Can we develop some patterns to beat pusher retrievers? How do you beat retrievers? Well, according to brain typing and body typing, Kelly has 2 choices. Pack a lunch and hit more balls than the pusher, so be a better pusher than the pusher, or develop 2-ball patterns that gets the pusher vulnerable. So like a short angle, side door, ground stroke, followed by a drive to the other corner. Or very successful in girls tennis would be a moonball approach. You fence the girl's butt back by the back fence, then they moonball, and you come in and take a swing volley out of the air. Well, moonball approach and a swing volley are both secondary strokes. And that's a great discussion to have with a coach is how can we put together some patterns so Kelly doesn't keep on losing to moonball pushers. I think that's important. So, but there's a lot of communication, and it's sometimes the tough part is that a tennis coach has a pretty big ego. So understanding how to navigate that ego is also another issue. But
yeah.
Right.
Frank, we have a caller on the line. I'm going to just see if they have a question. Hang on one second. I have a caller from 440-759. Are you there? Caller? 440-759? Oh, maybe they're just listening. Okay, I'm going to leave them on mute and let them listen away. All right, sorry, Frank, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, don't worry. I'll give you another little version of some topics maybe because I think this is a great idea of how does the parent talk to the coach. What are some of the things that a parent can add to the coach's repertoire? I'll give you a couple of my favorite mental emotional drills. So let's say, for example, a player is very physically talented, but they can't close out a lead. They have trouble focusing and closing it out. I recommend doing a drill I call negative scoring, which means at every practice session or drill, have the player be accountable for their unforced errors. So if the idea is hit 10 forehands cross court, It's a very basic drill, but 10 forehands cross court. Every time they get one in, they get a point. But every time they miss, it's -1 to the score. So they'll get up to 8, they'll lose focus, they'll go down 7, they'll get a little bit mad, 6. Then they got to build it back up, 8, 9, 10. So you could do this with any stroke or any drill, but my opinion is if you can strengthen the mental and the emotional muscles while you're doing strokes, you're multitasking. A parent can ask their coach to add negative scoring to all the drills, so they're not just doing physical training, but they're doing mental and emotional training.
That's a great idea. I love that. Yeah, I love that.
That's fun, and it's hard. It's really hard to do because now the kid walks away from a practice set and they're mentally, emotionally exhausted. They're like, "This is tiring. This is like a match," and you're like, "Yeah,
yeah.
Exactly." But one more might be just doing a different scoring system, what I call mega point scoring. So you have the two players sparring, but instead of doing 15, 30, 40, that type of scoring, see if either player can win 3 points in a row. It's very difficult to win 3 in a row, but a lot of kids that are not great with mental and emotional, they roller coaster. And so what I mean by that is they're great for 2 games, then they give away a game or 2. And to stop the roller coastering, you can ask the coach to play these mega point scoring drills where, so I'm serving, if I can win 3 points in a row, I win the game, the other person serves. Now, if I'm at 2, I'm on a mega point. That means I have to really focus on a mega point to win the third. If I'm on 2 but I lose the point, now I'm back to 0. The other person has 1 because they just won 1 point in a row. And it's super hard to win 3 points in a row, but you'll see, you'll start to do this mental and emotional toughness training, and they start to actually compete better. So that's a couple examples of that. I think a good topic is something that I learned about 15 years ago from my neighbor. I'll give you a quick story because to me it was hilarious, but it totally changed my life. So I have a golden retriever, and I'm out in the back running back and forth with the dog and playing catch with the ball and just goofing off like most people do with their dogs. I look over the fence, and my neighbor has a golden retriever as well, and he's spending 20 minutes having the dog run through cones back and forth. And then I look over later, and he has the dog running through this little hoop tunnel, coming around with a circle, gets a treat, goes through the tunnel, gets a treat. Then a little bit later, he has the dog jumping over 2 feet obstacle poles, coming around a circle, gets a treat, jumping over again. So I couldn't resist. I go over, I go, "Well, what are you doing?" He goes, "Well, we're part of the U.S. Dog Agility Association, and I'm training to win a national title." And just an epiphany, just the light bulbs went off in my head that dog is practicing in the manner they're expected to perform to win a national, but tennis players don't. Tennis players go out and play catch and rally back and forth, but they're not practicing in the manner they're expected to perform. So, coming from the whole Vic Braden Tennis College and everything is a case study, I did a case study. So I took 2 groups of 6 higher level players. One group, we kept doing the old school training, which everybody listening knows this already. They go on the court, they hit mini tennis back and forth to each other. They go to the baseline, they hit cross court to each other, then down the line to each other, cross court the other way to each other. One person goes to the net, volleys right back to the other person, while the baseliner lobs short right to that person. And, it's funny, they get into a high-pressure first-set tiebreaker, and they hit a lob short right to the net girl. They lose the breaker. And they go, "I can't believe I did that." And I'm thinking, well, I can, because all you do all day is practice getting short to the person. So we flipped it. We did the other group of 6 kids, and we didn't let them do any of that. They warmed up for just a couple of minutes, and they started running their, what I call the top 7 patterns. And all they did for 6 weeks is run their 2-ball patterns, their top 7 patterns, over and over religiously. And then in every practice set, they were only allowed to run their top 7 patterns. They couldn't go off script. And by the end of 6 weeks, Group A that did the deliberate customized practice, they just dominated Group B that did old school training. So it was super interesting for me. And ever since then, it was amazing that the kids I teach now, I think they've won about 77 national singles titles because they're practicing like my neighbor's dog instead of the old school way.
Interesting.
So it was pretty fun. And why don't we, if everybody's still with me, you want to go ahead and start to kind of go through the top 7 patterns so the parents and the coaches out there can kind of maybe jot it down? Okay, so here's what we did. We took the deliberate customized group. We brought them inside to a classroom setting. And really simple. Number 1, we said, what's your favorite do-side serving pattern? So they had to write down, kick down the tee, hit to the other corner, slice wide, get behind the runner, whatever their favorite pattern was. Number 2 was, what's their favorite advantage side service pattern? So we kind of mentioned, like, okay, for $1 million, what pattern would you run? So they wrote down their favorite ad side serving pattern. Number 3 in the top 7, what's your favorite position and shot selection versus a strong first serve? Where do you stand? Do you go high and heavy up the middle? What's your plan? Number 4 was your favorite position and shot selection versus a weaker second serve. What's your best favorite play? And I didn't even try to change their game. And I just let them do what they wanted to do, but they had to stick to their favorites. Number 5 was their favorite rally pattern to get the opponent vulnerable, like high and heavy to the backhand, short angles. What do you do to get the opponent vulnerable? Number 6 is your favorite short ball option. Do you crush a winner, approach shot volley, drop shot? What's your favorite short ball option? And the last, number 7, is what's your favorite net rushing option? Do you like to do serve and volley, moon ball approach to swing volley, or traditional, like, wait for a short ball, approach the backhand? So we had those players write down their top 7. We went on the court, and we only did pattern repetition over and over and over. We didn't play catch and rally back and forth. We really tried to stick to this whole practice in the manner you're expected to perform. So,
Frank, can I interrupt you 1 second? So when they wrote down these patterns, was there any sort of discussion about them, or you just trusted the kids to self-evaluate in a manner that would be effective for them?
Yeah, at first it was trusting the player and let them self-evaluate, let them run what they think is best. Later on, we did tweak it with some of the players. Often again, it depends on personality profiles, but often some of the riskier, crazier players chose the ace bomb down the tee instead of the kick serve wide kind of a thing. So we tweaked it with some of the players, but mainly we just said, look, let's just try something. Don't deviate from your plan. And it was amazing how these players started to win once they started to spot mega points, add in, add out game points, and then only run their favorite plays on mega points. And they spotted the tipping points, those really certain times in every set where the set gets a little bit hairy, it gets a little bit close, and we have the players definitely only do what they do best. And we took some of the guys to the Indian Wells Pro Tournament, and we had them write down top 7 patterns of pros. And so one of the matches we went to was Ryan Harrison against Rafa Nadal. And while the kids were charting, on the serve to the ad side, top 7 pattern, Rafa served a slice wide 89% of the time, followed by an inside-out forehand. And he won the match routinely. He conserved energy for future rounds. And so it was nice that it showed the juniors that pros kind of play proactive. They know what they do best, and they stick to it. They don't just play reactive ball and just whatever happens, you know?
Mhm.
So
they have a game plan.
They do.
For sure.
And you know, it's so important to just practice in the manner you're expected to perform. And I'm thinking back on the court that just had the kids doing normal old school training. They would actually hit ground strokes for like 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and then they'd hit serves for 5 or 10. Well, with the new group that's kind of doing pattern play, we wouldn't let them do that. We made them serve, and then the coach would rip 2 ground strokes. So they would serve, land, push back, and hit 2 ground strokes, rehearsing the pattern. Well, they would do that for the whole hour. Well, both courts would hit ground strokes and serves, but one group would be doing it in the exact way they have to perform in a match, so the exact sequencing, and the other group just did it old school, 45 minutes of groundies, go do a little bit of serving, and it really paid off when the kids got used to serve, land, change the angle, serve, land, run the pattern. So hopefully that'll help some of the coaches out there listening that it's a ton of fun to change it up some, and now the kid's thinking more like a match.
Sure. And I watched for a long time, as my son's serve developed and became more of a weapon, but then he wasn't ready for the first ball that came back to him. So what you're talking about, serving and then having the coach feed 2 ground strokes, that solves that problem. You don't have time to sit there and admire your great first serve because you've got to get ready for the return. And
you do.
And when you stand and serve a basket of serves, you're not thinking about that. You're serving and you're watching where your ball goes, and you're, trying to calculate the serve speed and, did I break 100 this time?
Yeah.
So it gets them out of that way of thinking more into the serve is the way to start the point, and I better be ready for that next ball.
Yeah, and a lot of coaches and a lot of parents know this too, that there's a really big difference between a first or second strike error and an error on the 10th or 12th ball of a rally. And it's painful as parents to watch your kid make first or second strike errors, which is exactly what you're talking about. Is you hit a great serve, you missed the first stroke, and the other dude didn't even have to earn the point. You're donating quick free points, and that's painful for a lot of parents to see. So,
sure.
Anyway, though, with this whole idea, I'll kind of wind it down, but the whole idea about top 7 patterns and deliberate, customized, training, I think it's in the parents' best interest and the junior players' best interest to stay at the tournament site even when they lose, go watch the seeded players play, and start to recognize the opponent's top 7 patterns. Because at the higher levels, when it's add in or add out, it's crunch time or a tiebreaker. If you know their favorite do-side serve pattern, you can go shut it down, and you're going to make them go for something cold or something they don't want to go for in the tiebreaker. If you know their favorite short ball option is crush it down the line, you hit a short ball and you shut down the line crush. And you make them maybe go for a drop shot. So this is part of the art of winning, is not only do you have to know your own top 7, but this is called opponent profiling. You have to pay attention to their favorite styles of play. And I must admit, though, it's a little bit easier at the higher levels because the better kids do things on purpose. And at the lower levels of juniors, nobody knows where the ball's going. So it's a little bit tougher to kind of anticipate when the person hitting doesn't even have a plan. So
right.
I hope that makes sense with the top 7.
No, I think it's great, and I, like I said, I've watched my son's own game develop to the point where, he started with, just try to get one more ball in the court than my opponent. That's my goal. To here's how I can win points, and having specific patterns of play and understanding if I hit here, likely return shot is going to be there, and really understanding the geometry of the court and how to anticipate and move, and so I think it's fantastic advice, and have seen it work in our home, so I do attest to its success. I want to transition though, Frank, because we're a little past the halfway point in the show, and I want to make sure we touch on your new college search book. And I've just been through the college recruiting process in my house, and thankfully it's over and we're settled, and big sigh of relief. But a lot of my listeners still have that looming ahead of them, and you have some great information for parents, and the information that we don't even know we don't know. So I'm hoping you can share some of that with my listeners today as well.
Yeah, great. It's we put together this little ebook because we had so many parents expressing some of those same issues. And it's called How to Attract a College Athletic Scholarship. We actually, on purpose, tried to organize the ebook so it's not just for tennis. If a parent has a tennis player, a basketball player, soccer player, a lot of these same rules will apply to any sport. So it's available at, my website is maximizingtennispotential.com, but also the typical Amazons and Kindles and that type of thing. So I wrote this book basically to help parents and coaches because there's a lot of good information that teaches the juniors how to fly, but there wasn't a lot of info teaching the juniors where to land. And then from my side, this is really important that there's a lot of physically talented players, and they usually kind of run out of time, and they don't make that great D1 NCAA team because the parents kind of have a lack of knowledge about the process of how to raise athletic royalty or the college search process, which is this e-booklet. So we're hoping we covered most of the topics on it. I think one of the facts that's in the book is when should the parent start. So I'll cover some of the facts. Developing athletic royalty begins well before the athlete reaches their teens. So deciding that you want a great college athlete when your child's already 15, 16 is a little bit late. Initiating the college search process usually begins their freshman year. So the tennis parent does have, a job, and there's job descriptions for their jobs. Where do you start was a big question. And it's important to know that the academic and athletic scholarship requirements, they're really specific to each different university. So I recommend beginning the search process at ncaa.org. There's these eligibility centers which will explain each school's requirements. So I would definitely go to that website if I was a parent. And again, remember, starting this process when your child is 8th or 9th grade is probably in your best interest.
I just want to interject.
Yep.
I just want to interject that if your child is planning to play an NCAA sport, tennis specifically, you do have to register them with the NCAA Eligibility Center, and it's very simple. If you Google NCAA Eligibility Center, you'll jump right to it, and it's just a matter of filling out an online form, but your child does have to be registered in order to gain eligibility to be on a team. And so that's one of those things that I think we took care of that freshman year of high school. I think it has to be done sometime during the sophomore year, and it's very simple. So parents, make a note of doing that and taking care of that as soon as possible.
It's funny, though, it's a painful process because, number one, you don't want your little baby to leave, but then you kind of do, but you know how much work's going to be involved, and everybody puts it off, but that's fun stuff. But anyway, in the world of tennis, I think it's important to note that women's tennis is a head count sport, which means that they each receive a full, scholarship, but men's is not. Men's is an equivalency sport, which means scholarships can be broken down, right, and divided up. So I think that's important to know. I don't think there's a lot of men that get full rides. I don't think even Stevie Johnson at USC got a 25% scholarship his first year. So getting on the right team, getting in the right school is probably more important than the actual dollar amount, especially getting in with the right coach. That's big. But this little book, the How to Attract a College Athletic Scholarship book, we talk a lot about the difference between being in the buyer's market and the seller's market. And you're in the buyer's market when you've already had your deliberate, customized developmental blueprint in place. You've been building a national champion since they were 12. Now, all the prestigious schools know about you already. They're calling you. When my daughter was in 8th grade, there were college coaches calling her on her cell phone, even though they're not supposed to. But they will find you. If you build the champion, they'll find you. You don't have to worry about all this stuff. Unfortunately, though, if you wait a little bit too long, or if your child has not been doing this deliberate, customized developmental plan, you're in the seller's market. The job is actually selling your child's possible athletic value along with the thousands of other unproven, athletes that are vying for the leftover scraps of scholarships. So it's really tough if you wait too long and now you're in the seller's market. So I don't recommend that. There's so many kids I see that are really talented, and if they get on a good plan, they're going to be in the buyer's market. So
how do you classify a late bloomer?
Well, there's a lot of different components to that growth development schedule. Some are late physically, so their weapons don't bloom. They're too small. Some are just mental and some are emotional. Some are too tall at first, and interesting enough, their athleticism doesn't lock in, and their body's just too uncoordinated. I found, though, in the past that some of the better kids that I worked with, including like Sam Query, they were not at the top of the game at the 10s, 12s, 14s. They didn't even get good at tennis really until 16, 17, 18. But the process was started way early. Like with the Queries, they moved from Nevada to California for Sam's tennis. He was doing all of these high-level, deliberate, customized things, and then by the time his body, got coordinated and he caught up, he was ready to win the Orange Bowl. But I don't think he would have if he would have started at 17. Mm-hmm. So starting early, I think, is is a key. But I'll give you a couple more little things, and we'll sign off. But in this ebook, we interview a bunch of the top NCAA coaches, and I want to throw out just some of their advice. So here's their words of wisdom. Number one is research and recruit the colleges that fit your child's needs. Don't wait for the college coaches to find you. It's the job of the athlete and their parents to contact the coaches. Don't confuse a smooth recruiter with a good tennis coach. Because next year they'll be recruiting somebody else instead of actually coaching and improving your child. Start the process of research via their freshman year. We talked about that a little bit. Coaches don't want to hear about 10 and under rankings, and which is interesting. And what's interesting for me, too, is that there's a fun fact that only about 2% of high school athletes receive a college scholarship at NCAA universities. So the meaning is that it takes much more than just playing high school ball to get a scholarship. So in some sports, I think high school ball is more important than others, but in the world of tennis, these top coaches don't look at high school as serious. They only look at nationals and ITFs. So for me, that was interesting. And when we talked a little bit about that with coaches, and they said, well, there's a reason why we have 90% foreigners on our team, because they have stronger work ethic. They have way more experience. Some have been playing pro tour tennis for 2 or 3 years before they even get to the college. So parents, it's good for you to realize that the competition for your son is not a neighbor down the street or somebody in your town or even somebody in your state. The competition is the kid from Bulgaria, so those are the kids that are going to come out and basically steal all of the college scholarship funds. So you're
and it's a little different. It's different
Yeah.
on the girls' side, and I think we need to be very clear about that. That because tennis is a head count sport on the women's side, the process isn't nearly as stressful if you have a daughter seeking out a college scholarship as it is if you have a son.
True.
And I think it's very important that people understand that it's a very, very different procedure to go through this with a daughter versus a son. And just because you may have gone through it already once with a daughter and now you have a son coming up, you really need to understand the differences.
Yeah, that's a good point. And sometimes I feel it's not really fair, but life isn't fair, and that's part of the whole college switch process. The men do have it a lot tougher, and but from the college coaches, they're still. I was working with Wichita State, and I think they have 90% foreigners on their women's team as well. So from the eyes of a college coach, they're looking anywhere around the globe for a good player. They don't really look at are they American or not, So
right, and their job is to win. Their job is to win.
Yeah.
Period.
Good point. Yeah.
So they need to put together a team that will put them in the best position to make that happen.
Yes.
And there have been coaches traditionally committed to recruiting only American players, but they are in the minority, and so that's an important fact too, for sure.
Yeah, I think that was the case when my daughter played at USC. I don't think they may have had one foreigner, but I'm not even sure if they did. So, but I think an important note though for parents listening is that this is something that you have to jump on top of early. Don't wait until your junior or senior year of high school, to jump on it. If you're a junior listening, get organized. Get your parents to help you get organized. And athletes should just kind of view their scholarship not as a free ride, but as a full-time job, because it is a lot of work when you get to college. So, anyway, so last couple of things I think that's important in this ebook is that we listed a whole laundry list of questions about college life, campus life, academics. So when these parents and the juniors go visit a school or even talk to a counselor on the phone, they know what to ask. So I'll throw out a couple of the questions that I think might be important. What's the graduation rate of student athletes? You should inquire about the dorm sizes, the number of roommates per dorm, the location of the athletic facility or the gym, cafeteria, library, especially if you're going, back east where it's snowing like crazy. I think you should really research the weather and geography of the region. Do you want small town or big city life? Kids should think that through a little bit. Are tutors assigned to you for a certain number of hours every week for all 4 years? And that was one of the things at USC that my daughter got to negotiate was she had a tutor assigned to her to help her to make sure she completed everything. And so that's something you can negotiate. What are the special programs available to students? Oh, go ahead.
I said that's good to know, that's a negotiable point.
And everything is negotiable. So I don't think there's like a one type of scholarship. You can negotiate depending on your ranking and how bad they need you. But I think it's really important that you explore the campus life and the food in the cafeteria and how old is the equipment in the gym and the database in the library and the internships and job placement opportunities that are provided from the school. These are things that are going to become way more important, to the junior athlete once they get closer to graduating. So, and I'll run through one last little laundry list of questions that, and again, there's a couple of pages of these in the booklet, but as far as the athletic support and services, does the college provide full-time on-site physical therapy to injured athletes? Because some do, some don't. What's the university's procedure if you decide to leave school before graduation and turn pro? Can you return later and complete your degree for free? Big question to ask. Are you allowed to join a sorority or fraternity? Are you allowed to go skiing or ride a skateboard? A lot of the contracts state that you're not allowed to do those things. Is the athletic facility state of the art? How many courts? How are the locker rooms? It's really important that you understand the philosophy of both the head coach and the assistant coach, and how many private lessons do you get every week? How long has the coach been at the school? Are they happy? I can't tell you how many times a player signed on to go play at a college, and then 1 year later, the coach that they adore, which was the whole reason why they went to that school, the coach quits to go work somewhere else. And now they're stuck at a school with a coach they don't even like. So I think it's important to ask those questions. Last couple of things would be to print out a schedule of the matches. Make sure that kind of fits with what you're thinking. Sometimes we've had kids that want to play way more, or they're actually done playing. They're just going to play tennis a little bit in college, and they don't want to play 40 hours a week every week. Research the teammates when you get there. Like we said, are they Americans or foreigners? What language do they speak? What are their goals? Do they respect the coach? Do they shower daily? That's funny, but we had a young lady who quit a college team in Texas to come to California because she couldn't stand being in the van because all the girls didn't shower but once a week, and it drove her nuts. So That was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. But that's why
I have never heard that.
Yeah, it was great.
But it's a cultural thing, right? It's a cultural thing.
I think it is. And if you're used to living in, Texas or somewhere where there's not a lot of foreigners, and now you're 24/7 with foreigners, it's a little bit different. So,
right.
And some people love that, and some don't. But I think it's good just to check it out. So
sure.
And the last thing is just research the team's strengths and weaknesses in the league. What position would you be playing in the squad? Keep in mind that the coach is trying to recruit to replace the better players. So where are you going to fit in? Sometimes players go in with the assumption they're going to be playing number 1 or 2, but they play number 5, and now the next year they don't even play. And now they're so mad because the coach is not playing them. I think it's important, though, to look at that, the strengths and weaknesses of players on your team and in the league. And so it's a little more detailed than most parents think. So that's why we put the booklet together. We put this nice little booklet together that should help really guide parents in the right direction.
I think that's great. Well, I urge all my listeners to pick up a copy. It's an ebook. It's totally easy. You just download it straight to your computer or your reader or your tablet, and you've got it to refer back to as needed. Frank, thank you so much for coming on today. I, always enjoy talking with you. I always learn something new, and today was no different, so I appreciate it. And to my listeners, I hope you gained some additional knowledge about how to help your junior player achieve his or her highest potential in the game, whatever that means. And it means something different for every single kid. But I think, if we parents have the knowledge to help guide the process, then it just makes it easier for everybody. And Frank, I just, again, thank you so much for taking the time to put all of this information together. I know you've got a ton of info on your website. You've got all of these books available. Many of them are listed on the books page on ParentingAces.com. So for my listeners, take a peek there. And Frank, give us your website one more time and how people can contact you.
Yeah, great. Lisa, thank you so much for doing all you do for all the parents. It's so needed out there. But my website is simple. It's just maximizingtennispotential.com. And you can contact me through that anytime. And thanks again, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week on Parenting Aces.